Abraham's journey. Abraham comes on the scene at the end of Genesis chapter 11, and then again in Genesis chapter 12, when God appears to him. The first 11 chapters of the book of Genesis had been focused on the entire human race. Yet now in chapter 12, its focus was on a man named Abram, who would be referred to as the Hebrew. God later changed Abram's name to Abraham, which means father of many nations. It is important to realize that Moses wrote the book of Genesis, and Jesus confirmed that Moses was the author. This fact should give the reader confidence in reading the book of Genesis regarding events and geographical locations and chronology. The Bible says that after the flood, Noah's 3 sons populated the world: Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Noah spoke an interesting prophecy in Genesis chapter 9 that Ham's son Canaan would be cursed, and that the Lord, or Yahweh, would be the God of Shem. Abraham was a descendant of Shem, and in Genesis chapter 12, the Lord, Yahweh himself, comes to Abraham in his homeland called Ur of the Chaldees, and says to him, "Leave your country, and leave your relatives, and leave your father's house, and go to a land which I will show you, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and make your name great. And you shall be a blessing, and I will bless those who bless you, and curse those who curse you. And one of your descendants will bless the whole earth." So Abraham obeyed the Lord. Abraham was 75 years old, and he left his homeland with his family, his wife Sarah, and his nephew named Lot. And they journeyed north up the Euphrates River and came to Haran, a city in northern Mesopotamia. The Bible reveals that Abraham's father Terah died while Abraham was in Haran. It is interesting that Abraham's father Terah was 8 generations from Shem, and was born a little more than 250 years after the flood. In fact, Noah lived long enough to have met Terah. Noah actually lived for 350 years after the flood, and he died 2 years before the birth of Abraham. It is also interesting that when looking at the lifespans recorded in the book of Genesis, Adam's grandson Enos lived long enough to have met Noah. So it was around 2000 BC when Abraham headed out for the land of Canaan, gathering more of his family and more possessions. But God revealed to him that he would only be a stranger and a pilgrim in the land of Canaan, and it would be his descendants who would later inherit the land. On Abraham's journey, he passed through the great city of Damascus and entered the land of Canaan and came to the city of Shechem. The Lord appeared again to Abraham in Shechem, confirming his promises, and Abraham built his first altar to the Lord in the land of Canaan. After this, he came to Bethel, and he built a second altar on a nearby mountain. The Bible says that a major famine hit the land, and Abraham and his family journeyed southward to the land of Egypt. Later they left Egypt and came back to Bethel, and Abraham came back to the altar he had previously built on the nearby mountain and called upon the name of the Lord. Abraham and his nephew Lot parted ways, and Abraham dwelt at Hebron, and the Lord spoke to him again and told him to look around as far as he could see in all directions, and God reminded him that he was giving to him and to his descendants all of the land of Canaan. Abraham built an altar there at Hebron to the Lord. It was at Hebron that the Lord cut his covenant with Abram, and Abram's name was changed to Abraham, and he was circumcised. Also, while Abraham was at Hebron, Ishmael was born. And the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. And God warned Abraham that his descendants would be slaves in a foreign land for 400 years, but God would free them and they would return to this land. Abraham journeyed to Gerar and then to Beersheba. And it was at Beersheba that Isaac was born, the child of Abraham in Sarah's old age, and the child of the promise. It was at Beersheba that the Lord called Abraham to take his only son Isaac to one of the mountains of the land of Moriah and offer up his son as a burnt offering. God intervened, and Abraham rejoiced to see the day of Jesus. Abraham returned to Beersheba and later came back to Hebron, where he purchased the cave of Machpelah as a family tomb, and he buried his wife Sarah there. Abraham died at the age of 175 years old, a good old age according to God's promise that he would live to a ripe old age. And Abraham was also buried in the cave of Machpelah at Hebron.